Good morning. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be here and to have an opportunity to be a part of this historic event. To my good friend, Dr. Barbara Reynolds, to my friend also, Dr. Stephanie Myers, and also to Delegate Hester. It's good to see all of you all again. It is a blessing to see that we're still on the wall, fighting with one hand and building with the other. I remember last year when we were downstairs, and when I first came in, I went right downstairs and sat, and I said, well, where is everybody? They're late starting, and everyone was up here. But to the speakers that prefaced me, the panel discussion is absolutely excellent, and it's right on point. I stand here as a testament to community, to the world, to families, that no matter what it looks like, there is still life. There is life after death, and the thing that you think would kill you sometimes can give you life. So I thank God for the opportunity to be here and to be a part of this historic program. Now, I call this summit historic because, believe it or not, we are being streamed out all over the country, but there are programs going on just like this all over the country today. People wanting to know, how can we bring change in our community today? I am the owner of Bspeaks International. We are a life investment company. Hope is our package. We bring new solutions to old problems, but how many of you know that principles don't change, people change? So today it's a day of bringing addressing the situations that we're dealing with old principles in a new way to help our young people. We believe that our young people, our families, and our community are reachable, teachable, lovable, and savable, but we must change our approach in adapting to their needs. For what worked in 2000 won't work in 2014. What worked in 2009 won't work in 2014. So we believe that our youth and our families are reachable, teachable, lovable, and savable, and it's time for change. I'm a firm believer that one of the greatest problems that we have today within our community is picking up and moving on. We stand on, as the pastor of this great church said earlier, we are here in the presence and on the shoulders in a place where people set the foundation for us to evolve to where we are today. And I'm sure our ancestors are turning over in their graves saying, what has happened to the great community that we believed in? Where is the hope? Where is the change that we fought for? So I'm here today just to impress upon you the importance of keep pressing and pushing. When Len died some 29 years ago, I begged to die. I did not want to live. And Jay died 4 years later. I did not want to live. But let me tell you, the best is yet to come. When I begged to die and I was sitting there, I could not see grandchildren. I could not see my 2 remaining children married. I couldn't see my husband and I still together, married for close to 50 years. I could not see that. I saw everything gone. Everything was so black. So no matter how black and how dark the times look within our nation and within our community, these things are coming to pass to say, wake up. Wake up. It's time to start moving. The best is truly yet to come. I am a firm believer that I think what all of the panelists said, and I'm just going to say this, is that what is missing within our community is the big P. I said this last year, I think, and I'll say it as long as I'm speaking. The big P is prevention. In the United States of America, we have built billions and billions of dollars of infrastructures on outcomes. We're putting more money into more jails, more social needs. Everything is growing and everything is going over here. One of the important pieces that we have to have is putting resources in prevention. And we have become a very docile, lackadaisic community when it's time to come forth into prevention. As Reverend Mills said, it goes back to the home. Well, everybody doesn't come from a good home. Well, it takes a community to raise a child. Let me tell you of 3 programs that I'm involved with when I should be somewhere crying. But I have faith and I hope and I believe. I just had a workshop last week for teen girls. It's called WIT, Women in Training. I wasn't overwhelmed, as the past moderator said, that I didn't have 1,000 kids there. No, I was working with what I had in my hands. We had about 15 enthusiastic parents and almost 30 girls there, and we worked with them. And what did we talk to those girls about? Stress management, learning to manage your stress, learning to deal with anger. You say, well, Dr. Bias, why are you starting with the females? It's very important that we start with the females at a very young age because they are the life givers. They are the trailblazers. Everyone that's in this room came through the womb of a woman. And we want them to celebrate their womanhood, to grow and to develop and to be able to come forth in a time when we need them so bad, to make healthy and good decisions. The best is truly yet to come. I also have the Ross program, Raising Our Sons. We believe in our young boys. I was just down at a detention center a month ago, and at this detention center I spoke, and there were about 30 boys there. It wasn't a detention center. It was a place where they sent boys, the judges sent them to keep them from going to the detention center. A campus where they're being educated. Then we have hope, helping our parents evolve. Helping our parents evolve. Our parents need help in moving forth. Our parents need help in knowing that our youth are this nation's greatest natural resource, and the best is yet to come. I put this out front because earlier I was told that it would be all right to talk a little bit about what I do, but because, for the sake of time, I'm getting notes to move on. But what I want you to know today is this: hope is not extinct. The best is yet to come. The word today is prevention and recruit, as the last moderator said. Recruit, recruit, recruit. We are going to have to go out and rally this great army of people who will rescue our communities who are sitting on their apathy. It is time to move. The best is yet to come. Our speaker today, as I went to his website and read about him, I was so excited about everything that he's doing, and that's the excitement about this national conference, summit on nonviolence. That's what's so excited about, because you get to hear what other people are doing, and that lets us know that hope is not extinct. Dr. Joseph E. Marshall, Jr. is founder of Alive and Free. an international violence prevention organization headquartered in San Francisco, and is the host of the violence prevention radio talk show, Street Soldiers. Founded in 1987, Alive and Free has transformed the lives of more than 10,000 young people, produced 183 college graduates and 50 with graduate degrees. Alive and Free communicates its violence prevention prescription by teaching young people how to stay alive, unharmed by violence, and free from incarceration. Let's appreciate our next speaker.
So I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to get up at the podium. And hi, Isha. Hi, Tracy. Two of mine. So I'm going to be very controversial. Can I be controversial? I need to be controversial. First thing is, you probably haven't heard of me. And I always say you haven't heard of me because of two things. One is good and it works. And anything that's good and works, you don't hear about. So I'm not surprised. And, you know, in talking to Dr. Myers, the first thing, how do you change the culture of nonviolence? Well, you change the culture of violence by changing the way people think. If you don't change the way they think, you're not going to change the way they act. If people act in a violent way, you got to change the way they think. Now, this might surprise you, which is why I want to be controversial. I don't have any violence problems. Don't have any. Young people I work with do not commit violence. I don't have any horror stories. I'm sorry. So your question should be how, in this era of violence, with violence going all over the place, you don't have any problems. Because I think that's what you say you want. So I'm here to give you what you say you want. You say you don't want any violence? All right, I can tell you how to do that. And basically, very simply, we teach people not to act in a violent way. Not hard. I mean, it's hard to teach, it's hard to learn, but that's what you do. You teach them how to act in a way that doesn't produce violence. In fact, that's why I want to be controversial and bold, so you can say, oh no, you got to be kidding. I've just heard all these horror stories. Yes, you hear them, but that's because they don't know what I know. They don't learn, they don't get taught what I teach. And let me just say this, I'm pretty sure, you know, I was reading about this. How many of you know what conflict resolution programs are? Oh, okay. You know what the problem with a conflict resolution program is? You got to have a conflict in the first place. And I'm like, got that? I don't have conflict resolution. I do conflict prevention. So I don't have any conflicts too? See, I want to be controversial. I want you to say, oh, this man is crazy. There's no way that can happen. See, you know, because I don't want you. You're supposed to be skeptical and doubtful and all of that. But it's true. And I have a couple witnesses here. Everybody know what restorative justice programs are? And that's basically where somebody has committed a crime and then you bring, the basis of restorative justice, you bring people in and then they sort of, confess, but make up with the family that they have harmed. And you know what my issue with restorative justice is? You got to commit a crime in the first place. So I'm really trying to give you what you say you want, which is a world without violence. Now, of course, I'm sort of like a doctor in a world full of disease, where disease begins to attack your body from the beginning. Day one, in many ways, we're born to die, right? Right? We're born and eventually we're going to die. I'm thinking, but that doesn't stop doctors from trying to keep you alive as long as possible. It's not that disease is going anywhere, it's that they battle against disease the whole time. So they did pretty good. My grandmother, she lived to be 94. That's pretty good, huh? You see, but for some reason with violence, we just think we can't keep them alive. So I really know what I'm up against when this comes thing, the violence, to be able, but see, what doctors try to do is keep you alive in a world full of disease. And they've created a whole body of people that do that, right? They have a medical profession. They don't say, well, oh, the baby's here and the baby has some illness, and so the baby's going to die anyway, so forget it. No, they say we're going to do everything we can to keep this baby alive. And they've done pretty good because the median age used to be, what, years ago it was 40 and that's 50. And now people living so long, they don't know what to do with them. My parents are 91. They're doing pretty good, huh? You see, because medicine doesn't decide that it can, but when it comes to violence, we just have figured that no, it's going to happen. And so we haven't developed a profession that in a world full of violence decides that I'm going to do everything I can to reduce the risk of you dying or going to prison. So I know what I'm up against. This is a world full of violence, but it's my job, in spite of, and I think that's what's been fascinating about this thing, that we have been able to keep young people alive and free in a world full of violence. And that's probably why you don't know about me, because it actually works. I don't have a lot of time today to tell you how it works. I just need to tell you that in order to do that, it's a full-time job. Did I say full-time? It's a full-time job. Like doctors have a full-time, that's all they do, right? They go to medical school, and all they do is learn how to keep people alive. Well, if you're going to fight violence, you got to do it full-time, all the time, because as my young people say, the streets is always after me. So, yeah, it's been fascinating sort of pulling this off. And you don't get any publicity for actually doing it, because the world is not about nonviolence. The world is about violence. So when you're someone that actually keeps young people alive and free, I'll give you a couple of examples of people who are not interested in, I know what I'm up against. Private prisons are not interested in me keeping young people alive and free. Because if I keep young people alive and free, they won't make any money. They won't have anybody in prison. They don't like me. A lot of today's hip-hop doesn't like me either. Because the rappers make their money talking about selling drugs and violence. So they don't necessarily like me, because if I keep people alive and free, they won't have anything to rap about. In fact, some of these artists are fascinating. I'm sorry, I work with young people, so I talk like a young person, so I have to, as they say, keep it real. They have artists that used to sell drugs and don't sell drugs anymore that still talk about selling drugs. So I know there's, it's so fascinating to be in this work where people give lip service. That's what I'm looking for, Dr. Byers. Lip service to stopping the violence when they're not really interested in stopping the violence. I really think about this. I really thought about that. We're a program for violence. I don't know about you. I don't know, but a lot of homes I work with, and it starts early. Parents tell their children when you go to school, somebody hits you, what they tell them? Right there. You've already told your child right from the time you go to school, he hit you back. God. I've had parents that tell their kids, we heard about snitching. I got parents that tell their kids, don't be a snitch, don't tell. You've learned that at the age of 3 years old, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So to do this in a world that is nothing but about violence, in communities that are nothing but about violence, in families that are nothing about violence, is unbelievable. But here's what I've clearly learned. That's what I want to do. And so first thing I had to do was come up with a way of saying it differently. You know, when you go into the doctor's office, the doctor doesn't say to you, do you want to stop the disease? He'll probably say to you, or she'll probably say, do you want to stay alive? So I want to get something positive, not something you don't want to do, but something you want to do. So I began to talk to my young people very early about not stopping the violence, but staying alive and free. You got to have a goal. You know, you got to have a goal. And so staying alive and free is a mantra for my young people. That's what they want to do. They almost chant it. That's their goal with everything they do. And anything that decreases the risk of them staying alive and free comes under scrutiny. Anything, everything. Friends, family, loved ones, everything. Music, anything that decreases their risk of staying alive and free comes under scrutiny. And I'm really lucky. Young people let me get into all of these areas. Nothing's off limits. Now, adults got a different problem, but that's a whole other story. I'm going to do that. But young people let me go into all those areas that decrease the chance that they will not stay alive and free. Now, let me say this. I had to begin to understand why they got into violence in the first place. I really didn't I didn't get it. I kind of got it, but I didn't get it. And then I began to understand why they got into violence in the first place. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but as I began to talk to young people, they told me that they got into violence because they thought it was a way to survive. Almost every young person I talk to that gets into violence says, Dr. Marshall, I'm just trying to repeat.
Survive.
We're in the church calling response, please.
Survive.
We're just trying to
Survive.
Ask anybody who's into it. Ask any gang member who's trying to survive, any drug dealer who's trying to survive, anybody, I'm just trying to survive, And then I thought, it's not working. You're not surviving. You haven't learned how to survive. You've learned how to die and go to prison. No wonder you were fooled. You thought it was something that it wasn't. Somebody told you that if you did this, you would, what? Then why are you in jail? Then why are we at your funeral? You got, as Malcolm X said, hoodwinked and bamboozled from the beginning because it was posed to you as a survival skill, but what you really learned was a death and incarceration skill. So I have to start from the beginning and say, God, it's almost as if you've learned 2 + 2 is 5. And so you've been operating on that premise for years and doing it over and over again. I talked to this one young person. He was in jail. The 18th time he was in jail. 18 times. And he kept saying, I said, why are you doing this? He says, I'm trying to. But you're in jail for the 18th time. Obviously, you're not. God almighty. This thing is a really tricky thing, this violence thing, because violence is like a disease, but it doesn't appear like a disease. It's very, I've studied it very, very closely. And by the way, my laboratory hasn't been, the PhDs. My laboratory has been the young people. It's really tricky because most diseases tell you what heart disease says, I want to take your acquired immune deficiency syndrome A says, I want to take your immune system. It's very clear about what it wants to do. It wants to kill you. But this disease of violence, the streets, any name you want to call it, is insidious because it appears to be something that is not. It says, I want to help you. Oh, man. That's not even fair. You can fight a disease that says I'm a disease, but you can't, it's very difficult to fight something. There are people who are infected and sick with the disease of violence that don't even know they think they're fine. They think they're healthy. Oh, man, we are up against it with this. But since I know this, since I know that they can't survive even they think they can survive, medicine has really, I keep thinking things. Medicine has really done a good job with things. There was a time we didn't know about smoking. Everybody used to smoke. I'm old. So everybody used to smoke. It was great. Everybody smoked. Smoking was wonderful. We didn't know that smoking caused. And there are some people right now who think that if they smoke, they won't get. And they'll say, my grandmother's 90 years old and she smoked for years and she never got. But that doesn't stop the medical profession from saying you shouldn't smoke because it increases the chance that you will die of cancer, even if the person doesn't think so. So it doesn't really matter what they think, is what I know. I mean, you can have somebody think 2 + 2 is 5. That doesn't mean that means they're, and since I know I'm right, so I don't have any problem giving young people information about how to stay alive and free, even though they think everything's fine. Even though they've been to jail 18 times, even though they've been to 16 funerals in 16 years, and I never went to one when I was a young person, all I do is share information. That's all I do. I tell you how to stay alive and free, even when they think, and the things I have to beat are amazing. It's almost if they want a guarantee. Dr. Marshall, bullets don't have no names. You ever heard that one? Oh, if you ever young people hear it all the time. Dr. Marshall, like some of the things I can't say because I'm in church, that they say, S happens, stuff happens, Dr. Marshall, or when you gotta go, you gotta go, or wrong place. Ever heard this one? Wrong place, wrong time? I gotta keep them alive and free in spite of all of that. It's amazing, and all I do is begin to give them information about how to stay alive and free. So I teach them a lifestyle that is not popular, a lifestyle that is very different, a lifestyle that's sort of doctors actually teach you healthy living lifestyles. I have a daughter that's a vegetarian. She read a book about chickens when she was 11 years old. And after that, it was, I've always admired her because, she has friends that are cruel, and they know my daughter's a vegetarian. So even when they'll go out to eat, and people just like messing with people, and they'll just say, eat this. Just put meat in front of them. Just eat it. I guess they're testing her, playing her. But her resolve is that, no, and I'm not going to eat any. And as she drives down the street, all the fast food restaurants beckon her, come to me. Come to me, come to me, come to me, come to me. And I guess what I really admire about her, the fast food restaurants haven't gone away. And they're not going away. But she's still in her resolve, because she wants to live healthy in her, that's the way she sees it, she still lives this lifestyle. So I admire Tracy and Aisha, a couple of my young people who are here in D.C., even though I'm from the West Coast, who even in a world where everyone else is doing something completely different, they continue to live this lifestyle, and they are alive, and the world around them hasn't changed, but they have changed. They live this lifestyle. It's almost as if they're protected. Did I say that? It's almost as if they have a force field around them that as somehow they walk the streets, the same streets that you and I walk, nothing happens. Now, this will really scare you. I've never lost a young person who lives this lifestyle. Now this man is crazy. Now, what you should be asking me, what do you know that I don't? That's what you really should be asking me. What you should be asking me is, how do you do that? If you're really interested in keeping young people alive, because the one thing I found in this work is people say they want that, but they don't really. Because it's a nice thing to say, but that's something you really want. I just teach, and them how to stay alive and free, and then because that's what they really want to do. Now, I had to teach them a lot of ways. And I don't have time to teach you all this today. That's what's so terrible. I had to teach them how to handle friends. I had to teach them how to handle peer pressure. I had to teach them how to handle family. I had to teach them how to handle all those things that would imperil their life and their freedom. But they were great students because they really wanted to stay up. And they had to make some hard decisions about things. Oh my God, the people that they had to cut off. You know the hardest people they had to cut off? Take a guess. Their family members. Look at them. Look at it right there. Like I had them 20 years ago. Their family, they were the ones they had to cut off. Oh my God, because the ones who were putting them in danger were their family. You know how hard it is to cut somebody off in your family that's putting you in danger when they telling you we're family, don't listen to that man? They had to change their friends. They had to put away their guns. All those things that put them at risk, they had to move to the side. All the people that put them at risk, he'll probably say to you, or she'll probably say, do you want to stay alive? So I want to get something positive, not something you don't want to do, but something you want to do. So I began to talk to my young people very early about not stopping the violence, but staying alive and free. You got to have a goal. You know, you got to have a goal. And so staying alive and free is a mantra for my young people. That's what they want to do. They almost chant it. That's their goal with everything they do. And anything that decreases the risk of them staying alive and free comes under scrutiny. Anything, everything. Friends, family, loved ones, everything. Music. Anything that decreases their risk of staying alive and free comes under scrutiny. And I'm really lucky. Young people let me get into all of these areas. Nothing's off limits. Now, adults got a different problem, but that's a whole other story. I'm going to do that. But young people let me go into all those areas that decrease the chance that they will not stay alive and free. Now, let me say this. I had to begin to understand why they got into violence in the first place. I really didn't I didn't get it. I kind of got it, but I didn't get it. And then I began to understand why they got into violence in the first place. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but as I began to talk to young people, they told me that they got into violence because they thought it was a way to survive. Almost every young person I talk to that gets into violence says, Dr. Marshall, I'm just trying to, repeat.
Survive.
We're in the church, call and response, please.
Survive.
We're just trying to survive. Ask anybody who's into it. Ask any gang member who's trying to survive, any drug dealer who's trying to survive, anybody, I'm just trying to survive, just survive. And then I thought, it's not working. You're not surviving. You haven't learned how to survive. You've learned how to die and go to prison. No wonder you were fooled. You thought it was something that it wasn't. Somebody told you that if you did this, you would, what? Then why are you in jail? Then why are we at your funeral? You got, as Malcolm X said, hoodwinked and bamboozled from the beginning because it was posed to you as a survival skill. But what you really learned was a death and incarceration skill. So I have to start from the beginning and say, God, it's almost as if you've learned 2 + 2 is 5. And so you've been operating on that premise for years and doing it over and over again. I talked to this one young person. He was in jail. The 18th time he was in jail. 18th time. And he kept saying, I said, why are you doing this? He says, I'm trying to. But you're in jail for the 18th time. Obviously, you're not. God almighty. This thing is a really tricky thing, this violence thing, because violence is like a disease, but doesn't appear like a disease. It's very, I've studied it very, very closely. And by the way, my laboratory hasn't been, the PhDs. My laboratory has been the young people. It's really tricky because most diseases tell you heart disease says, I want to take your acquired immune deficiency syndrome says, I want to take your immune system. It's very clear about what it wants to do. It wants to kill you. But this disease of violence, the streets, any name you want to call it, is insidious because it appears to be something that is not. It says, I want to help you. Oh, man. That's not even fair. You know, you can fight a disease that says I'm a disease, but you can't, it's very difficult to fight something. You know, there are people who are infected and sick with the disease of violence that don't even know they think they're fine. They think they're healthy. Oh, man, we are up against it with this. So, but since I know this, since I know that they can't survive even they think they can survive, medicine has really, I keep thinking things. Medicine has really done a good job with things. You know, it was a time we didn't know about smoking. You know, everybody used to smoke. I'm old. So everybody used to smoke. It was great. Everybody smoked. Smoking was wonderful. We didn't know that smoking caused. And there are some people right now who think that if they smoke, they won't get. And they'll say, my grandmother's 90 years old and she smoked for years and she never got. But that doesn't stop the medical profession from saying you shouldn't smoke because it increases the chance that you will die of cancer, even if the person doesn't think so. So it doesn't really matter what they think, it's what I know. I mean, you can have somebody think 2 + 2 is 5. That doesn't mean that means they're, and since I know I'm right, so I don't have any problem giving young people information about how to stay alive and free, even though they think everything's fine. Even though they've been to jail 18 times, even though they've been to 16 funerals in 16 years, and I never went to one when I was a young person, all I do is share information. That's all I do. I tell you how to stay alive and free, even when they think, and the things I have to beat are amazing. It's almost as if they want a guarantee. Dr. Marshall, bullets don't have no names. You ever heard that one? Oh, if you ever young people hear it all the time. Dr. Marshall, like some of the things I can't say because I'm in church, that they say, S happens, stuff happens, Dr. Marshall, or when you got to go, you got to go, or wrong place. Ever heard this one, wrong place, wrong time? I got to keep them alive and free in spite of all of that. It's amazing, and all I do is begin to give them information about how to stay alive and free. So I teach them a lifestyle that is not popular, a lifestyle that is very different, a lifestyle that's sort of doctors actually teach you healthy living lifestyles. I have a daughter that's a vegetarian. She read a book about chickens when she was 11 years old. And after that, it was, I've always admired her because, she has friends that are cruel, and they know my daughter's a vegetarian. So even when they'll go out to eat, and people just like messing with people, and they'll just say, eat this. Just put meat in front of her. Just eat it. I guess they're testing her, playing with her. But her resolve is that, no, and I'm not going to eat any. And as she drives down the street, all the fast food restaurants beckon her, come to me. Come to me, come to me, come to me, come to me. And I guess what I really admire about her, the fast food restaurants haven't gone away. And they're not going away. But she's still in her resolve because she wants to live healthy that's the way she sees it. She still lives this lifestyle. So I admire Tracy and Aisha, a couple of my young people who are here in D.C., even though I'm from the West Coast, who even in a world where everyone else is doing something completely different, they continue to live this lifestyle, and they are alive and The world around them hasn't changed. But they have changed. They live this lifestyle. It's almost as if they're protected. Did I say that? It's almost as if they have a force field around them that as somehow they walk the streets, the same streets that you and I walk, nothing happens. Now, this will really scare you. I've never lost a young person who lives this lifestyle. This man is crazy. Now, what you should be asking me, what do you know that I don't? That's what you really should be asking me. What you should be asking me is, how do you do that? If you're really interested in keeping young people alive, and because the one thing I found in this work is people say they want that, but they don't really. Because it's a nice thing to say, but that's something you really want. I just teaching them how to stay alive and free, and then because that's what they really want to do. Now, I had to teach them a lot of ways, and I don't have time to teach you all this today. That's what's so terrible. I had to teach them how to handle friends. I had to teach them how to handle peer pressure. I had to teach them how to handle family. I had to teach them how to handle all those things that would imperil their life and their freedom. But they were great students because they really wanted to stay up. And they had to make some hard decisions about things. Oh my God, the people that they had to cut off. You know the hardest people they had to cut off? Take a guess. Their family members. Look at them right there, like I had them 20 years ago. Their family, they were the ones they had to cut off. Oh my God, because the ones who were putting them in danger were their family. You know how hard it is to cut somebody off in your family that's putting you in danger when they telling you, we're family, don't listen to that man? They had to change their friends. They had to put away their guns. All those things that put them at risk, they had to move to the side. All the people that put them at risk, they had to move to the side. They had to give up the ways that it's almost like they had been told one thing by their mothers and fathers because misguidedly they had gotten information about how to survive, but it was leading them to an early grave. And that's what's so tough about this thing. This is an amazing, if you really want to stay alive and free, there are certain things you just can't do. There's a lifestyle you have to live. Now, here's the hardest thing about this thing. You will be totally unpopular. Nobody's going to like you for this. Nobody's going to like you because, see, everything you've been told to do is to be cool, to be popular is what puts you in an early grave. But, yeah. It's really hard knowing something, having a cure for something, and you're one of the few people that know it, and people still won't ask you, how do you do it? So all I can do in the few minutes I have here, she talked about hope, talking about possibility, is say, yeah, it can be done. There's another one. Hi, Brittany. Another one. Alive and free and educated. You don't have to worry about her. You know, she can come. I could bring you all my young people right now, and you wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Nothing. You wouldn't have to pat them down. You wouldn't have to do anything. Isn't it nice being with a group of young people that you don't have to worry about anything? It's all because I taught them how to stay. They are not victims nor perpetrators of violence. It's just been glorious, and I know I know nobody knows because the world is not interested in keeping people alive and free. The world is interested in violence. But see, they are interested in staying alive and free. So yes, if you want to know, if you really want to know. Now, if you don't want to know, it's fine. You can continue. Now I want to be harsh here on purpose. if you want to change the culture of violence, you have to change the way young people think. Now, don't get upset with me. And I know, I understand what's going on. Proclamations don't change the way people think. A sermon on Sunday doesn't change the way a young person thinks. Those things are easy. Those things are nice. Those things are anything anybody can do. In order to change the way somebody thinks, you've got to work with them on an ongoing basis to get them to think differently. I'm going to give you 2 examples, if I quickly can, of how I didn't know this when I started. When I noticed, I just wanted to help kids. I really wanted to help kids. I just wanted to help kids. My thing was giving young people an opportunity. You know, a lot of youth programs, what they do is they give young people because young people always say they want to what? I need a job. I want to go. I had no idea. So my thing, I didn't do jobs, but I did school. And I told a young person, look, if you believe in this alive and free thing, if you act in a way contrary to the rest of everybody else, I want to do something for you. And they said, what? I said, I'll pay for your college education. That's what I said. I was going to work, and I didn't have to do that. It's just something I wanted to do. And part of the reason I did it was because I didn't know that families didn't do that, because my family did it for me. I mean, you know, I thought that's what families do. But my kids, they didn't even, well, number one, a lot of my kids don't have fathers. So I just said, that's something I want to do for you. But so I had this young man. This is a great story. He was in a gang, right? He got out of the gang. I said, what do you want to do? I don't do jobs. I do school. And he said, Dr. Marshall, I want to go to school. I really want to go to school. In fact, the reason I got into the gang in the first place, when I was in middle school, my counselor told me, you can't go to college. You're not smart enough to go to college. That discouraged me, so I turned to the gang. But now, I'm out, and I was impressed because he had the courage. He had the courage to get out of the gang. I said, what do you want to do? I said, fine. I said, I'll go to school. Now, you've wasted 10 or 11 years gangbanging, so I got to retrain you, right? Prepare you for college. Look, got the boy ready to go to college. He was really smart. Wrote him a check for $5,000 and sent him to college. Put him on a plane. You know he sold drugs on the college campus? That was my biggest eye-opener, because I had given him what he said he wanted. He said he wanted a what? Opportunity, right? And he had a good intention to do well, but here's what it was. You'll love this. I had taken the boy out of the hood, but I hadn't taken the... Now I got my response. You see, so many programs don't take that stuff out of the young person that short circuits opportunity and good intention. And you give him a job and he gets it. I had a guy who gave a job, he made $40 an hour at the job, which was great. And then 6 months later, he started to use that money to sell drugs. But see, I had changed his location, but I hadn't changed the way he thought. I hadn't changed the way he was inside. So if you really, that's why you say you have to you got to change the way young people think, or you cannot allow them to think that way in the first place. That's the prevention.
That's it. 2
examples, and I will stop. I had a knock on my door one time. I'm teaching. I've been a teacher. I've been with my kids my whole adult life. And this young man comes and said, Dr. Marshall, I have to go. Well, it turns out somebody got killed in the neighborhood, and he had gone to, I think the phrase is, ride or die. Everybody know what that is? Oh, Lord, I have to teach you guys everything. He was going to exact revenge on the people. I can't tell because you're not saying anything. Nada. So he had gone to exact revenge. So he's in the car, and if you've seen Boys in the Hood, you've seen the scenes where he's in the car, and he's beginning to have second thoughts. On second thought. Here's his second thought. Here's the first second thought. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to do this. Oh, man. I could go to prison for the rest of my... By the way, he has to keep this second thought to himself, because if he can't say it to the guys in the car with him, because then he don't want to be no good. At least you know that one. Okay. So he can't say it. So he's saying, oh, my God, yeah, My uncle wrote me about prison. I told my uncle I wasn't going to prison. I don't know if I want to do this. Never had a chance to stop him. Second thought number 2. Mom, I'm my mother's last son. She's already lost 2 boys. If I do this, it'll break her heart. I love my mama. Never had a chance to stop him. Second thought. And me and my girl just had a baby. Man, I told her I'd be there for the child. My daddy wasn't there for me. Man, I love my baby, man. Never had a chance to stop it. It's not that he wants to go to prison. It's not that he doesn't love his mother. He does. It's not that he doesn't even love his, and I don't use this word, but they do, baby mama. I hate that word. Or the child. It's just that fear of prison, love of mother, and love of his girlfriend and child is superseded, overridden by and I call it a commandment that he learned when he was young. Now, I'm using the word commandment, and I'll get to the commandment in a minute, because I used to ask kids, didn't you think? No, I didn't think till after it happened. And I wonder why he couldn't think. And I thought about being in the Army. When you hear the command, attention, what happens is that your body starts to move. As soon as you hear 10, you don't say, let me reflect on the command given by my superior. Your body just moves. So then these kids, I realized, I know why they didn't think. Because now they were on automatic, because it's like a computer. They heard the command, the enter button had been pushed, and all logical reasoning is gone. The commandment they learned that superseded mom, fear of prison, and love of child is, I'm going to say this because we're in the church, this is the way the kids taught me, thou shalt be down for thy set, thy hood, or thy crew. That's number what? Mama, I love you, but. You know, honey, I love you, but. I can do 5, why not? You can't job that out. Did I say that right? You can't opportunity that out. The only chance you have is to deprogram that young man. You can't keep giving him jobs. By the way, women, oh, Lord, I got these women in here. Y'all don't know that a lot of these guys you married, these boyfriends you have, are programmed. You can't love it out. Am I being harsh? See, because, ladies, I know who you are. You're just trying to help him, and you love him. So you move him into your home, and he's with your kids. How do I know this? Because your daughters told me. Your sons told me. You trying to help him out. He's a good man. He's not this. And then one day his boy calls him on the phone. See, you didn't know he was living by that commandment. You thought your love took him. Maybe you didn't even know it was a commandment. And now he gone. Because he's down for his set, his hood, his crew first. Now, you didn't know this. I know, I get it. But see, you need to know. And by the way, you're not the doctor for his illness. Send him to me. I'll give you another example. Because this stuff was learning. I was in the county jail one time, and it was a great day in the jail. As jails can't be a great day, but this was just a good day because I was doing a class on fatherhood. Fatherhood class. And these men were reconnecting with the fathers. And it was so funny. This man was on the phone talking to his daughter. It was so cute. She's going to the prom, and he's asking her, when you coming home? What's his name? Now, he can't do anything anyway, but he's trying to be a... So we go back to class, and this guy in the back row raised his hand and said, Dr. Marshall, I didn't do this. Now, everybody in jail tells you they didn't. Everybody. But then he did something that guys in jail don't do. He starts to cry. So I have to give him personal time. I go over and sit next to him. I said, what do you mean you didn't do it? He said, Dr. Marshall, I didn't do it. I said, I said, well, look, I'm not one of those get you out of prison programs. I'm a teacher. I don't do that. I said, but if you didn't do it, why are you here? You know what he told me? He says, I took it for my homeboy. Now, I learned the word in the 10th grade. The word was incredulous. That means I can't believe what I'm hearing. This word then became underlined, bold. It just jumped into my, and I said, you did what? You are facing 25 to life for something you didn't do? Again, I'm in church, so I'm being good. Who taught you that? He said, Dr. Marshall, that's the rules of the game. You know you can't snitch. Now, I'm not going to jail for nobody. I ain't going to jail for my mama. I told her that. I get you a lawyer. But my mama wouldn't ask me to go to jail. Do you know that people go to jail for other? And by the way, ladies, I went to a prison in Northern California. They put all the women in the room and let me talk to them, except for the political prisoners from the 60s. All the women in there were in jail behind men. Every one of them was in jail because they sold drugs for their men or wouldn't snitch for their. I didn't know that people lived like that, thought like that. I didn't know that people thought thou shalt not snitch. Because, see, I'm telling on everybody. You do something in this church, I tell on. Because if you heard my community, and everybody knows I'm on the radio back there every week. I'll be on the radio tomorrow night. They know it. Thousands of people listen to me. And everybody knows Dr. Marshall will tell on you in a. And they say, well, what, aren't you scared? I said, well, I don't want to die, but what's important to me is how I. So I have no fear, which means everybody knows he's crazy. I didn't know people believe thou shalt not snitch. I didn't know people believed thou shalt be down for thy homeboy right or wrong. I didn't know that people believe thou shalt be down for thy set, thy hood, or thy crew. I had no idea because I didn't grow up that way. So how would I know that? And I'm sending people to college, giving them money, giving them jobs. No wonder they blew up. So I love that. The big thing is that you got to change the way people think. You can't proclamation that out. You got to work with them to think differently. And see, it's going to be difficult because they think I'm crazy. They think Dr. Marshall's crazy. Oh, man, yeah, man, you crazy, man. No, you watch your mind. You watch your mind. And I'm the doctor trying to keep them what? This disease is so good that even when I show them people who are living, they'll be like, yeah, well, that ain't me. It can be you if you want to also stay what? See, this mass programming of destruction that's coming at you through the music, from your parents, all of that, it's coming at you 24/7. And here comes this one little guy that says, no, it doesn't have to. Aisha, is that your son? Oh, baby, I haven't seen son. See, I got to keep you alive, Ann. See, I know it's been coming at you. I know it's been coming at you, you little square you upon. I know it's been coming at you. Your mama been telling you one thing and the streets is telling you another thing. I know that. I know that. See, I know it's coming at you right now, all the time. 2 Chainz is in your ear. I'm sorry, I work with kids. Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj is in your head. It's coming at you over and over and over again. You be like, well, mama, I know, see? But I'm going to have to preserve you the way you are. There's 3 types of young people. The first one is a young person that's into destructive behavior that needs to change. Most young people are like you. They're good kids, listen to their parents, listen to their teachers, but somewhere along the way they begin to think that there's something wrong with being good. So you're a good kid, but you're going to begin to think there's something wrong with you being. See, because Lil Wayne be telling you, Yeah. I know how it works. I see the programming every day, and I got to make sure you don't get infected, because if you get infected, honey, son, it's hard to get that disease out of you. Okay, there's so much more, but I don't have time to give you any more. I just want to show you what you're up against, and I tell you what you need to do. You need to do this full time, and you need to help young people think in a way that produces life and freedom. I have the antidote. I have a prescription. The question is, do you want to know what it is? What I get is I get people that come up and say, tell me. As we say at the club, some get it right away, some get it sooner or later, and some never get it. But the one thing I don't want people to say to me is that I didn't know. Now you know. The question is, how much more do you want to know if you want to keep young people alive and free? I've gone on too long. Thank you for allowing me to say this here today. I'll take any question you want.
We thank you so much, Dr. Marshall, for that insightful presentation. Do we have any questions?
I saw a couple of hands earlier. You had one?
Here are the mics, here and here.
Did you have one? No, she did. Okay, you put your hand down.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the sponsors of this particular conference for doing this. Thank Dr. Marshall for coming by, previous presenters and other sessions. I came in late during your presentation, and you're doing an outstanding job in Oakland. I went to Howard University, and I was taught by a gentleman who was a cop in the Oakland area. Came to Howard as a doctorate in criminology, and I was studying criminology at that time. He taught me a lot of things that you shared with the people today. What I really want to ask you is this. You used that word deprogramming. I'm from Washington, D.C., streets of D.C., and I teach in schools, things of that nature, coach sports. But what you said, that whole wave of negativity is coming 24/7. How do you deprogram them, and how long should it take, and how long will it take? Share that with the people, because I had to deprogram people every day that I go teach in school system. Sometimes it may take one class period, it may take 2 or 3 years. Okay, is this a serious battle that we're up against 24/7? Talk to me. Thank you very much.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's why I frame it like a disease. You see, they got Ebola now, they got AIDS, right? They don't even have a cure. That doesn't stop doctors from trying to find a cure. And they're going to work until they find a cure, because that is their life's mission. So how long does it take to get a young person? It depends on how infected they are. It depends on how infected they are. But I will say this about young people, and that's why I work with them. They actually want the truth. They're not going to act like they want the truth, but they want someone to guide them through this madness. Now, let me say, I say it in different ways. You have opposing forces here. Sickness doesn't like health, evil doesn't like good, and the devil doesn't like God. When I come in and try and deliver a young person, that other side is pulling them away. They're telling them, think of a drug addict, right? Somebody who is getting off of drugs. He's always being told by that addictive side, you need me. You need me. I'm fighting an addiction. Violence is an addiction. Yes. I don't know how long it's going to take. All I know, all I have is I'm a doctor that's treating it all the time. That's why prevention to me is so important. I don't want anybody to get infected, and that's why I'm talking to him now. I don't know where he is. I'll talk to his mama in a minute. She'll tell me where he is.
Let me ask you this. Okay. Now, we got a culture of kids that look the same all across the United States, but they're in different cities. It's called Anywhere USA.
Anywhere in the world.
It just happened to happen in what? St. Louis. Yes. But we had that in D.C. during the early 80s with the crack era being here, and of course up in New York, things of that nature. I need to figure out how to offset that, because as I continue to keep doing what I'm doing, that wave is powerful. One would think that we would have learned something from the 80s and 90s, and now we are here, 2014, technology is wonderful, but we still keep falling to the same trap of wanting to go to gangs and things of that nature. Help me out.
A couple of things the disease really broke. I'm going to tell you when it got really bad. 1980. What is 1980? That's the year crack cocaine hit the black community. That's when everything went to hell. Everything went to hell, okay? Because it attacked the most sacred person in the black family that had carried us along, and that was the mother. All right, so that changed the entire landscape. So when I say I didn't go to a funeral growing up in South Central of a peer, that's because there were enough intact families to present that. Crack cocaine destroyed all of that. You're living in a new age now, okay? You are living in an entirely different time. Now, what that means is, for me, this is the age of recovery. This is the age of recovery. You can't assume that anybody knows anything. And you're living in an age where it's all about mass programming for violence. Now, I think like a doctor because I understand what medical doctors face, which is disease. They don't want, all they want is a chance to fight the disease. And they chart every single little cure. AIDS, they talk about Magic Johnson have lived for, they talk about this. So I don't even think like what I'm up against. I'm giving you all these things so you won't get discouraged. I also know that one person can do a lot of damage. Or one person can do a lot of, what if I got to the cop that shot Michael Brown? What if I got to freeway Ricky Ross who brought cocaine into Los Angeles? What if I got to Tookie Williams and started the Crips? I don't minimize the treatment of one person, because one person can do a lot of damage. You just got to decide if this is something you want to do. So I don't even look at it like that. And then the other thing, I have so much success. I give you 3 examples right here of success. Next question. Thank you, sir. Great question.
Thank you, Dr. Marshall. I haven't seen a child I couldn't teach for 49 years. I've faced the same things you've faced. I've had children who didn't want to walk across the stage to get their diploma because the crack mother couldn't come to the graduation. Now, the question I asked when I signed in is, what are we doing in the schools? I work with a tutoring program here. After 49 years, I came here and set up a tutoring program, after-school tutoring. And one of the things I've had to do is program the adults in terms of how they treat the children. This is one of our major problems. I can't believe I had Christians in this church members don't indict me, who I had to retrain mentally to deal with the children so they wouldn't leave our program.
You're absolutely right. Let me put it the way I frame it, since I'm using a medical model. I got infected adults working with infected young people. You cannot get healthy people when you got infected people working with them.
So we have to really work on adults too, is what I'm saying. And as you've said, I've told my students many times in the classroom, and I still haven't seen one I couldn't teach yet in all those years. No one will like you, but in the end, you will love yourself. And I just leave with that. I asked as I registered, what can we do with your organization to get into the schools?
You need to know what I know. Now,
I'm talking about with the Black Women for Positive Change.
They need to know what I know.
Because they have supported my tutoring program here. I want to work with them in the District of Columbia.
I can train and teach anybody in here what I know about fighting the disease of violence, and you then can go out and help somebody else.
Well, I would hope that the Black Women for Positive Change can work with that too in D.C.
I hope so too.
They know you. I know them now because they've supported our program. We need to get to work.
And if they don't, you come get my card and you call me yourself.
It takes all of us. Thank you.
We're trying to recruit Dr. Marshall to be one of the good brothers, so he'll be.
Well, he's already agreed, so we're going to hold him to that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. One more question?
I'm Mildred Freeman, and my question is, how do we deal with convey to young people and parents about being recruited into gangs, because there's so much in the news and whatever that they're threatened and trying to be recruited, and they'll have nowhere to go, no help. these gang leaders are threatening them with death. They see their, you know, you read in the paper, you see people being killed because they refuse to become a part of a gang. How do you deal with that?
Two things. First of all, I got people back there that you can talk to who actually have grown up in this. And number two, whatever I teach young people, I'm going to protect them. I'm going to protect them from the gang. I'm going to do that. It's that simple. Gang members got to go through me to get my kids. So if I'm going to teach them this lifestyle, then I'm going to support them in that lifestyle, and I will protect you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you're just...
Well, but that's what you have to do. If you're going to tell somebody, and you think that they're at risk, then if you're going to ask them to risk their life by getting out, then you have to risk your life by helping them get out.
Well, where is the system to protect these kids and help these kids? But when you're being threatened that your mother is going to be killed or your best friend, I mean, where is the system?
The system isn't going to do it.
I don't know of any system.
I didn't say the system. The system isn't going to do it. I have to do it,
yeah.
Which means you have to do it. Yeah, that's what you have to do. And see, look, people, this is not something we haven't done before. This is not something that we haven't faced in the South. This isn't something we didn't do in the 60s when we went down there in the face of death. When I hear that, why do people say that? Hadn't you seen the Freedom Riders? Didn't you see people go down in front of bull counter? It's not something that, hadn't you watched Fannie Lou Hamer? We've done this before. What's the big deal? You can do it in front of bull counter and the white racists, and you can't do it in front of your cousins, uncles, and nephews? Is that the problem? You can't do it in your own community when you do it in front of them? You march on the police, but you won't march on your own community? What are you scared of? A dead black person is a dead black person. You should be able to take on anybody that puts their life for freedom in jeopardy. What's the difference between walking in front of I don't get it. I don't get it. So, it's not that you can't do it. The question is, are you willing to do it? God bless you. Stay alive and free. Thank you.
Dr. Marshall, thank you for that heartfelt presentation. And please, he didn't mean any harm the way he was speaking to you. No, I'm serious. It's just his passion. And doing this type of work, we're looking for answers, but what he's saying is the answer is sitting right here. And we have to come together and work together. No one is going to rescue us. There are many paths to the top of the mountain, but once you get there, the view is the same. He's in his path, I'm in my path, and there are others here that are in their path. All of us come together with what we do to make the whole and not being weary in doing well.